Hey there, dream chasers and passion pursuers. Welcome to the Passion to Purpose podcast, where we explore the incredible journeys of individuals who have turned their passions into successful businesses, nonprofits, movements, and side hustles. I'm Misha, your host, with over 20 years experience in the nonprofit sector, experience as a licensed real estate agent and mortgage loan originator. I've had the privilege of working with so many amazing people who have followed their hearts and changed the world. And now I'm bringing their stories to you. Communications professor and self-taught multiple award-winning filmmaker, Cat Brewer, has a passion for communicating, educating, and advocating. This passion shines through in her award-winning documentary, Sign the Show, the first of its kind to shed the light on the challenges faced by the deaf and hard of hearing community as they fight for access to entertainment, something most hearing people take for granted. Brewer has been interviewed on the Kelly Clarkson Show in 2019 and 2024, NPR, SiriusXM Radio, NBC Bay Area, KTLA, and more to bring awareness to the subject of accessibility in hopes that her film creates a cultural shift in the entertainment industry by making open access the norm for a more inclusive world. I'll hop right into the first question. If you could tell us about your background and what initially sparked your passion for Sign the Show.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Misha. I really appreciate it. Let's see, where do I start? I've been a teacher for 24 years. This is my 24th year, or going to be my start of my 25th. Oh my gosh. And I know, I don't like to admit that. I started when I was really, really young, like 10 years old.
Right.
I'm kidding. But I've always known I've wanted to be a teacher, probably since I was about 6 years old. And I think that's because, honestly, like my parents went through a divorce when I was like 6.5, 7, and school and my teachers always became my safe space for me. It's where I could go and feel loved and felt like I had, a safe space to just be, because divorce can be pretty tumultuous. I've been through my own. So I can attest, my parents did the best they could with what they knew at the time. And so, I took a very windy journey to get to be a college instructor. I started out after high school. I graduated, went to community college, Los Madonnas Community College out in Pittsburgh, and went for like a semester and a half and then dropped out because I really wanted to shop and go to concerts. I knew I wanted to teach, but like my priorities were a little bit off, although I have no regrets. And I became a fitness instructor, which I loved. I did that up until I moved last year. So that was a long career in teaching. And then I became a teacher in 2000 once I got my master's, or 2000. I started teaching in 2001, but got my master's in 2002. But through that, I always worked other part-time jobs because I was what the fancy word for part-timer. I was an adjunct instructor. And so, I had a lot of time to pursue other things, but I was also working sometimes up to 7 part-time jobs. It was a little crazy. And in 2014, I went to a concert, and for the very first time, I saw a sign language interpreter signing the show. I'd been going to concerts since I was probably 8 years old, and I was in my 40s when I, for the very first time, saw that sign language interpreter. And I was completely ignorant. I didn't realize that deaf people liked music, let alone liked going to live performances. So I started talking with the interpreter and then communicating with the deaf people through the interpreter. Come to find out, just like hearing people, deaf people love music and love to go to live events, but they face a different set of challenges than hearing people face when trying to get access to live entertainment. So I was really ouch, right? Because in that moment, I realized I had hearing privilege, and it was something that I'd taken for granted my entire life. And I, at that point, also kind of felt pissed off for lack of like enraged that like, hey, how come I have this privilege, this community, these people want the same access but aren't getting it. So I decided to write an article for the college newspapers where I was teaching, Diablo Valley College, Laney College, also Chabot College.
My alma mater.
Yeah, which one? Which one's your alma mater?
Chabot.
Chabot.
I got my AA at Chabot, transferred to Cal State East Bay, and went on from there.
Yeah, I graduated also. When I went, it was Cal State Hayward. But yes, Cal State East Bay. Cal State East Bay. And so I was going to write an article for the 3 colleges where I taught, and I was going through my divorce, and my roommate came home, and he's like, "What are you doing?" I was on my laptop at the kitchen table, so I was telling him, he's like, "Oh, this would make a great documentary," and I was like, "Okay." It's like, "You should do it," and I was like, "Okay." And I have no background in film. It was literally, what's the phrase? Baptism by fire, drinking from the water hose. Like I learned every step of the way, made so many mistakes, had that anxiety about interviewing someone and trying to capture it live. One was crazy, but it also allowed me, I came from it from the perspective of, this is another opportunity for me to teach. Like this is an opportunity for me to teach about a subject matter, a community on a completely different platform than, in the 4 walls of a classroom. And so I kept that in mind when I was making the film, because, people were like, "Oh, you're producing." And I was like, "Oh no, what is that? I'm just making a film." Like it didn't even click, honest to God, like didn't even click that I was producing a film. I was just like, "Oh no, I'm making a movie."
Right. Like, no big deal.
Yeah. Like, I mean,
just doing this little thing.
Yeah. I mean, I honestly thought I'd be done in 30 days. Like I didn't own a camera, so I had to go to Best Buy and buy a camera, and I knew nothing, nothing about it. And I was like, "This is $800 and then like $150 for the tripod. And I need to finish this in 30 days so I could return it because I'm a teacher and I don't make enough money." 10 years later, I still have that camera. Right. But I just kind of came at it with I think in Buddhism, they call it a beginner's mind. I didn't know how to do it. I didn't know that I was making mistakes. I learned. And then I was like, okay, course correct, pivot, do that instead. It's probably one of the wildest experiences I've ever had in my entire life, and one of the best experiences. And I wouldn't change a thing. Like I really wouldn't. Even all the mess ups that I did going through it, I wouldn't change it. Now going forward, I know what to do and what not to do.
Right. That kind of leads me right into my next question. You may have kind of gotten there already. What was some of the biggest challenges you faced when you first started out, and how did you overcome them?
I think the first challenge was that I was stepping into a community that I didn't have a connection with, or I didn't have any ties with the deaf and hard of hearing community. And so gaining trust was a challenge at first, and totally understandable. The deaf and hard of hearing community have been marginalized and underserved for centuries. And, here I was, for all intents and purposes, a white woman hearing with hearing privilege, doesn't know sign language, doesn't know any deaf people. Like, hey, like I'm going to make a movie about y'all and your struggles, and people looked at me, and I got pushback, and that's fine. And I also met some really amazing people who took the time to listen to me and to understand what I was trying to do. And then they got on board. So I think that was the first challenge, because if I didn't have buy-in from that community, it wouldn't have made sense, right? Because I needed their interviews. I needed their stories, because I'm not in the film. I didn't want to be in the film because it's not my story to tell. I just wanted to give a platform for people to tell their stories, which is, I teach public speaking for a living. So in the same vein, that's what I was doing. Like I allow my students to pick a topic that means something to them and then to share it, and really this is what I was doing in that community. So I feel like my skills were transferable, now, and I've never said that before. And I'm like, oh yeah, because I mean, really for 10 years, the imposter syndrome was like loud and clear in my head. And so I was like, oh wait, yeah, like those were transferable skills that I had. I think another challenge that I faced was raising funds for the film. It's very expensive to make a movie. Attorney fees, ridiculously expensive. Is taking it's funny, like I thought, okay, like I shot all this footage, I would just give it to my editor, he'd put it together, and then it's done. I have to go to a studio, and there has to be color correction and sound, and then you have to add a score, which costs money, and going to the studio costs money, and you have to hire a post-production supervisor. So it's like, oh, okay, like I did so many steps backwards, but it is what it is. I have a final finished product that I'm happy with.
Yeah.
I think one more challenge, which again, it's a challenge in hindsight. It's really knowing who you can trust. And I think I have a very trusting nature. And when someone says they're going to do something, I just assume that they're going to do something. And that I take them for their word, because for me, especially approaching celebrities, like I'm a nobody. I mean, like no one knew me. No one was like, oh yeah, that's like Martin Scorsese's niece. It's not like it's not like I had a film connection. They're like, oh, this is a teacher. And so I didn't have like credibility. And so the only thing I had was my word. It was like, okay, like I'll film this. I'm happy to let you look at all the footage and decide if you prefer me to edit this out or include this or don't include that. And so I just expected everyone to be the same. They weren't. And, there are some people who promised me the world and have not followed through. There are other people who never promised anything and stepped up in major ways. Sometimes it's really having to listen to your intuition. I would say that there are some whispers that were there in my head, and I just kind of like, I'm going to just ignore those because I think this is the right path to take. And now I'm like, oh, wow, there were bricks coming at me and I should have listened to those whispers, but now there's nothing I can do. So again, I don't regret anything. I feel if I can learn from situations and experiences, then I shouldn't regret them. I should just know better and do better moving forward. And this film allowed me a lot of those opportunities.
Absolutely. And, as I get younger, because, we're not getting older, I haven't always been a super trusting person, but I realize that a lot of those times when those voices are whispering in your head and you don't listen to them, you're not trusting yourself. And so I'm like, you know what, I really need to get better about trusting myself, because when I think back to it, it's never those little voices and those little nudgings, they're never wrong. Right.
Yes.
And you don't find out,
true.
You don't get validated in that until after the fact. And it's like, well, I could have saved myself this. This lesson is not a lesson I had to learn.
I am right there with you, girl. Totally get that.
And so I know when you got into making this film, it wasn't really the venture that you wanted to get into to make money or as a career pursuit, because you're still teaching. But what steps did you kind of use to turn that passion into a successful venture? And success doesn't mean a financial venture or another career, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I define success as being happy doing what you're doing or getting to do what you love to do. Okay, well, I have a phrase that I use all the time. I said that I hustled with gratitude and love. Gratitude and love for every single experience. Again, whether it was good or bad, I learned something from it either way. I had to realize I threw pity parties for myself. I'm not going to lie, right? I probably talked to the momager of one of the biggest stars in the world in music and thought that the interview was going to happen and then didn't happen and was literally crushed. And, I set a timer on my phone, 15-minute pity party, and then you gotta like pull your big girl pants up and keep on going. So I think that it was like learning where hard no is and what a soft no is to keep pursuing. I think that having determination, a lot of people tell me because I'm a Taurus that I'm stubborn, and I'm like, no,
I feel hit.
I was like, no, I'm not stubborn. I'm determined.
Absolutely.
I can, like I said, I can pivot, but if there's something I want, I'm going to exhaust every possibility in getting what I want. And, part of that was cashing out on my 401ks, which wasn't a lot, but it was something. Right. There were periods of time when I didn't have the money to keep going with the film. Like if I needed to fly to DC to do an interview, or I needed to buy a concert ticket to go to a show to potentially get an interview with someone, I did, I would stand outside the stage doors, be like, can I talk to you for 30 seconds as they're walking to their tour bus or whatever. So that was the hustle, right? That was the hustle. Right. And, but, I made a lot of financial sacrifices to be able to do this. And again, I honestly thought like, oh, I'll just put it up on YouTube for free. Like I wasn't thinking, like I didn't know about entering film festivals. I didn't know anything about getting distribution. I just thought, my friend knows someone at Netflix. Sure. Let me email them and say, hey, or I was emailing people that I wanted them to be my agent. And they're like, someone said to me, well, that's not how it works. Like they approach you. And I was like, really? Like, why can't I just email somebody? Right. So I think my determination, my hustle, and then, making every person, no matter what their job is or what their family life is like, everybody makes sacrifices, right? Like I really want that piece of cake, but I'm gonna not go there, right? I'm gonna make this sacrifice so that I can be a little bit healthier tomorrow. It's not that simple, of course, but it kind of is. Yeah, I did what I needed to do. I worked multiple part-time jobs. I did jobs I didn't want to do, but I needed to make money. And I was so blessed to get I'm an angel investor at the very end. Like literally, it was like I'd been sitting on footage and an edit for like a year and a half and just didn't have the money to keep going. And so I was really fortunate to have someone be an angel investor for me who believed in the project and was like, okay, what do you need? Like this needs to get out there. And so learning to ask for what you want, putting it out in the universe, hustling for it, being determined. There were times when I thought that it wouldn't happen, but I had to keep going, like one little thing at a time.
Right. Absolutely it does. And it sounds like a whole lot of determination and resilience to me, which I could totally relate. How did you stay motivated and inspired to keep pushing? I kept pushing, but like, how did you motivate yourself to do that when you were hitting different obstacles?
I finished filming. It was, I think 2018 was the last interview that I actually filmed. And the film didn't get released until 2024. It was a big gap, right? So I finished, so from 2014 to 2018, maybe it was 2019, early 2019, that I finished all the interviews that I had. And I ended up with 55 hours of footage.
Wow.
78 minutes made the cut. But I think honestly, there was a couple things that kept me going. One is there were so many stories from people in the deaf and hard of hearing community that were so powerful and so heartbreaking and so empowering that I wanted those stories to be heard. I wanted them to be seen. I wanted them to be listened to. I can't let all these people down, right? I can't. Right. And I feel terrible because not everybody made it into the film. Right? Like I had celebrities that didn't make it into the film. I had deaf and hard of hearing people that didn't make it into the film, or interpreters. And those stories are still really powerful. But in editing, you have to make a choice. So I think that making sure that those stories were out there for the world to see. And also, like, I really wanted I still do. I really want there to be open access at live entertainment events. You know, I don't want a deaf person to have to request access, fight for access. I just want those barriers to be removed so that everybody can enjoy the things that bring them joy. Like if you think about music or theater or live stand-up comedy, people just want to go have fun and have an escape from their life for a few hours and not have to fight to be able to do that. So it's really just been my main goal from day one was to fight for open access for the community, to make sure that their stories were told. And then, you know, it was also self-serving to a point. I was going through a divorce after almost 20 years of being together with my husband. I really feel like art in a way saved my life. I never called myself an artist, but this art definitely helped patch holes for a while. Like it helped, you know, it band-aid for a while until it healed up, and then there was a patch and then stitches, and you know, there was a lot of healing in that process for me in serving others as well. Yeah, I think that's what kept me motivated to keep going, to make sure this got out there.
Go back to some of our previous conversations before this recording, and you asked about whether or not there would be captioning. And at that moment, I was like, you know what? That had to be similar to the moment you had when you realized you were taking for granted this experience and wouldn't have even thought that, oh, yeah, that's something so easy to do, but I wouldn't have thought to do it, especially as a practice. And why exclude so many people when it's no inconvenience really to include everybody. So thank you for that, because that is going to be a part of my practice moving forward. Every video is going to have
awesome.
So
that's a
yay. Yay. You are fulfilling your purpose every day.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that. What would you say the most rewarding experience has been since you started the interviews and now getting to 2024 and finally having it done and ready for the world to be?
You know, I think I go back to the same answer every time, and that is I have made some amazing friendships with people that I would have never had the opportunity to meet, nor would have I ever thought that there might have been a connection between me and people. I thank the universe every day that it put my executive producer, Matt Maxey, on my path. We would message each other for a year on social media before actually meeting in person. I wanted to interview him so bad. So I say I stalked him on social media. The universe put us in each other's path. It was actually June or July. Our friendversary just popped up on 8 years ago. Yeah, 8 years ago in July at Firefly Festival. And from the moment we met, it was like this instant connection. I was like, oh, he's got good vibes. That's what I want to be around. There was never a whisper telling me like, hey, watch it. Like, I have never for once doubted his support, his friendship. And he started his own organization called Definitely Dope, DEAF, Definitely Dope, to bridge the gap between the hearing and the deaf communities. He teaches sign language. He has interpreted at like thousands of shows by now, I'm sure. But I have never once doubted his commitment, his support, his contributions. He's someone just so rock solid in my life. Like, you know, I'll call him or I'll text him and be like, look, I got a question. I need to talk to you about this. Like, we FaceTime. And he's never once steered me wrong. And so I really just truly my friendship with him has been probably the number one blessing of this whole film. Second is that it has been, so I got a tag on Sign the Show's Facebook page a couple months ago from a couple. It's a hearing husband and a deaf wife, and they had been trying to get an interpreter at a concert that they were going to coming up July 29th. And they were like, we've been trying since February to get an interpreter. We've been getting the runaround. Can you help us? And I was just like, let me see what I could do. And it was like just an honor to have someone reach out and say, can you help me? That they trusted me enough with their situation. And again, they don't know me. I'd never met them. And so that's an honor for sure. And so happy to say that they have their tickets and they have a confirmed interpreter. And I cannot wait to hear back from them, letting me know like how the concert went. It's truly a joy to also be connected. When the film came out, I did get a phone call from someone from Live Nation who heads their global accessibility. And we had a fabulous 3-hour conversation about, like what Live Nation is now doing to promote accessibility at all of their venues, which is like me a dream come true. It's like, this is what I've been fighting for. Yeah. I hope that in 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years down the road, like my film will be obsolete. There will be no need to watch it except as a time capsule of, look where we were and look where we are now. So I'm honored to even just have a little bit of a thread of a connection to Live Nation to be able to help support their efforts as well.
That's amazing. That's like a gift that keeps on giving. You said that you hope the film is obsolete, but I think even when there's access for everyone at concerts, there'll be something else that there isn't, right? That might inspire. And so I think, it'll never be obsolete or irrelevant because there's always a group of marginalized individuals. And that might spark something in somebody to make them want to pursue
to be an advocate for
right.
Yeah,
exactly.
Absolutely.
Exactly. What advice would you give someone at the early stages of exploring their passion and trying to dive head first into it?
I would say don't limit yourself because you never know. It's funny. I tell my students, they say I'm not a good public speaker. And I'm like, well, have you done it before? And they'll be like, no. And I'm like, well, then how do you know you're not a good public speaker? Right. It's like, someone says oh, I'm not a good chef or baker. And I'm like, well, have you spent any time learning your craft to do it? And they're like, no. Well, then how do you know you're not, right? We often limit ourselves oh, I'm not this, I'm not that. But, spread a wide net, explore things that excite you. I always say, does it make your heart sing? Does it fill you with joy? Go that route and see what's out there. Maybe you think you need to do X, but maybe there's something that's A or B that you could do that's related, that actually fits you better, fits your lifestyle, fits your time commitments. Just don't box yourself in. Society does that enough for us. I had so many people tell me crazy, why do you think you can make a film? No one's going to give you literally had people who I thought were my friends say this to me. And man, those little seeds of doubt got planted, right? But it's our responsibility to feed that garden. There's a woman named Robin Arson. She's kind of famous on Peloton as one of their instructors. But she always says, hush the inner critic. What does she say? Listen to your inner advocate. She has been such an inspiration to me. If she ever saw this, I'd cry if I knew she saw this.
Hopefully she will.
Yes, but she motivates me. She inspires me. She's like, chin up, crown on, get rid of the inner critic, listen to the inner advocate. And so I think that's what people need to do is not worry what society thinks you should do. Don't worry about what your family thinks that you should do, or even your friends. There will be people that will keep it real with you, and then there will be people who doubt you because they don't think that they can do it, and so you have to learn the difference. So spread your net wide, explore all of your options. You don't have to commit to anything. You're not married. It's not set in stone, right? You can change. And that's one of the really cool things about teaching at a community college is that I see students all the time who are returning to college after they've had a 20 or 30 year career in a field. And they're like, I'm burnt out. I don't want to do it anymore. I've always thought I wanted to do this, and now that's what I'm going to school for. It's so incredible to me for young students who are either in high school or just graduated high school, seeing these older or returning students be able to like see their journey and know that they're not stuck in one pass.
Absolutely. I was a adult learner. I went back to Chabot as a mom of two and a working adult and got my AA, transferred and got my BA. Now I still, because I'm a little hardhead, I am also a Taurus.
You're determined.
I am determined and a little bit in my way sometimes. And so I still had the idea that I needed to pursue what was practical, not what I was passionate about, because what I was passionate about had nothing to do with what I was getting that degree in. As a mother, I have one student who's on an academic track. I worked in education for a long time, and our philosophy was when you graduated high school, you must have obtained a acceptance for a 4-year college or university. So we were pushing kids to, no matter what you really want to do, you have to go and pursue a 4-year education. So I have one child that went that way first, and then I had my second, and he wasn't that passionate about high school. Very smart, very intellectual, but didn't see the purpose of organized education. And he wanted to get his GED and said, I'm going to start my life and start my career. And I don't want to go to college, so why? I'm only staying here if I want to go to college. And so he got a GED, and then he pursued HVAC. Loves heating and air and likes working with his hands, likes thinking, loves science. And it's a way for him to kind of tie all those things together. And I pushed him to pursue that. I'm like, you know what? And if that doesn't work out, you have way more time than I had starting as an adult. And you can change course and start again. And I think that is the biggest thing. And also when you said hushing the inner critic and how you have to sometimes put aside what your family thinks you should do and your friends think you should do. I've gotten to a place where I don't even share dreams with everyone, right? I only share them with really bold people who are open to giving me true and honest feedback, but will push me to go try it then, go do it, go and see, let's see if it works. If you need any help, we got you. But I found that family members and we have a lot of the same limiting beliefs already anyway. So I'm already telling myself I can't do it and maybe I shouldn't try it. Why am I going to go ask my mom if I should do it, who kind of gave me that very practical spirit in the first place? I've gotten to a place where I'm doing it before I'm sharing it with some people because their love for me will keep me scared. And so,
I so relate to that. I think it's not a popular opinion, but as a teacher, I tell my students, they're like, what's the one piece of advice you would give us? And I'm like, look, if you don't want to be here, if you don't need a formal education or degree to do what you want to do and what you love to do, then don't waste your time or your money. And I cannot remember his name, but I had a student who, after giving that advice, it was like 3, like literally didn't show up for like 2 weeks to school. And I was like, uh-oh. I was like, don't tell your parents I said that, right? And he then sent me an email and was like, I don't need a degree to be a yoga instructor, and this is what I want to do. And so he went, and like the end of a year or two, I got another email saying that he had dropped the class and he was pursuing that, but then he got his yogi certificate or whatever training, and then he was like opening up a yoga studio. And I was like, oh my God, this is the best thing ever. Again, listen to your spirit, listen to what brings you joy, and go do that. Whether that's getting a degree. Like, I have a friend who has an amazing career. She absolutely loves it. She makes a ton of money, and she feels like, I need to go get a degree. Don't feel like I'm worthy maybe to go to do this or that because I don't have a degree. And I'm like, girl, I have a master's and I'm a teacher and I love it. I'll never make what you're making. And money isn't everything, right? It really isn't. You have to, if you can get up every day and do what you love to do, that, to me, again, that's success. I think I said that like at the very beginning.
Yeah, no, that is so real. And sometimes we chase this purpose and we think it's going to be this profound thing and this practical thing and this thing that we said we were going to be all our lives and all of that. And it's really just the things that make you happy, that you're passionate about, that have you waking up in the morning excited to do them over and over and over again. And oftentimes that is what really leads you to your purpose, because you're already walking in that every day
Yes.
in some way, shape, or form. And it's just really just making that connection happen. And it's
Yeah,
like, why was I
absolutely.
40 plus when I realized that?
That's okay. I really truly believe that everything happens when it's supposed to happen.
Right, exactly.
I believe, I don't know, I believe things happen for a reason. Oftentimes people will say that when things are going really well in their life, right? And then when
Hmm.
things go to hell, they're like, oh, this isn't happening, for a reason. But I truly had to believe that. That's like whatever faith that I hold, that's my faith,
Hmm.
is that everything happens for a reason. You may never
Right.
know the reason, and it happens. One of my best girlfriends always tells me, in God's time. And I'm like, okay, in the universe's
Right.
time. She's like, in God's time.
Right.
And if someone would have told me back in 2010, 14 years ago, that like my divorce would be the best thing that ever happened to me, I would have told them they were
Yeah.
crazy. But it truly was the best thing that has ever happened to me. Like, had I not gone through that, I would have never. I mean, I went to a concert by myself in 2014,
Okay.
trying to heal myself with music, right?
Mm.
And that's when I got the idea for the film. So had I not
Wow.
been separated and divorcing, I would have never gone to a concert solo to try to build my life as a 40 single year old woman,
Right.
40-year old single woman, right? I would have never done that. I would have just been in my little pocket of being married and not
Right.
exploring all of these options that were available to me. So truly believe everything happens for a reason
Yeah. And
and
I'll
in
say
in
that
their time.
absolutely. Now I did know that my divorce would be the best thing to happen to me. That happened in 2015, but you just kind of ignited that thought that, I relocated from California to Texas after my divorce, right? I would have never
I
done that.
relocated
I
from
would have,
California to Vegas. Yeah,
yeah, I would
never
have
would have
stayed
never done
stuck
that.
in my practical little life, doing the things that I was nowhere near passionate about, and just kept
Yeah.
on going that way. So, yeah, some of
I'm
our
so
biggest,
glad that I'm
yeah,
so glad that happened for both of us. Young kids say, I love that for you.
I do. I love that for you. Yeah, it's pretty cool, and I think it was the best thing for him too. To be fair, right?
Yeah.
So, what are some of your future goals and aspirations? I know the film is done. You want to do any more films?
That's always the question I get asked. And people
Mhm.
are like, you have to have an answer. You have to be able to tell people right away what you're planning to do next, because you never know who's listening and who will fund it.
Mm.
So I just got my dream job last July. I was hired as a full-time tenure track professor at the College of Southern Nevada in Las Vegas. And I literally pinch myself every single day that I have this job. I was
Mm.
adjunct for 23 years.
Wow.
So it is literally life changing for me.
Mhm.
So I just want to like settle into the goodness of feeling like I have some stability in my life for the first. I'm 50.
Right.
I just turned 53. So
Yep.
like dreams can still come true at 53 years
Absolutely.
old or 52. I do have a ton of footage from the film that
Hmm.
I would love to go back and produce some shorts, like put
Hmm.
together shorts from that. Again, don't have any money to do that yet, but hopefully, if someone out there is listening and
Right, Netflix.
yeah,
That sounds like a
yeah,
perfect short series.
yeah, my film is not on Netflix. I will say that it's on
Okay.
Tubi, Apple TV, Google
Mhm.
Play, and YouTube. I did get a distributor, and if it doesn't make it on Netflix, that's okay. If it never makes
Okay.
it there, that's okay, right? But sure, if Netflix wants to say, "Hey, Kat, we'll help you do this series on accessibility in conjunction with Live Nation," like I might as well just put it out there in the
Ooh,
universe.
yeah, put it out there.
Uh, yeah, like I think, Strong Brew Productions and Live Nations, like an original Netflix series, like I think that'd be awesome. I'd be
That would
down
be so
for it.
awesome. That would be so
Or
awesome.
Hulu or Amazon, like
Right. Prime, yeah.
HBO documentaries, right? Then I might be able to get to meet Sarah Jessica Parker again.
Oh yeah. 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 I'm sure you know some awesome and amazing people. I've seen a few that you have.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I got to give a shout out to DL Hughley, who I love and adore. who really did help me through my separation and divorce. With laughter and kind words. And he just actually posted on Instagram the trailer today to help support the film. I really, truly have just met one of the most humble, genuinely good human beings doing this. And it's just my honor to be like in their orbit.
Wow. Yeah. And you got to this answer before I even asked the question, as I was going to ask how you measured success. It sounds like that's how you measured success, right? The quality of your experiences and the relationships and things that you've made on the journey. Yeah.
Absolutely. Friendship. Wow, there's a great quote. It's like, friends divide your grief and multiply your joy, right? Yeah. So making friends along the journey of these last 10 years of making this film just have been irreplaceable to me. Yes. And to have support of people, people who supported me when other people did not, like people you wouldn't think supported you. Right. You're like, oh my gosh, really? Okay.
Right.
Yeah, it's just, again, success to me is doing what you love and, having some really good friends that are around you to help divide your grief and multiply your joys.
That is a quote to end that question on. Absolutely. And I know, so you told us some of the streaming platforms that we can find the film. How else can we support your work? If you could just reiterate where we can find the film, how we can support your work, how can we share the trailer? What can we do to?
The best way is just to head to the website, which is signtheshow.com. And all the links to the streaming sites are there. Tubi is free. You can absolutely watch it for free. You just have to watch commercials, right? That were the ads. And then on Apple TV, Google Play, and YouTube, there is a rental fee or a purchase fee. I did this person that I suggested the film to. I was like, oh, you should watch this. I didn't tell him it was me. And he's like, oh, well, if I don't like it, I get a money back. And I was like, yeah. I'll give you your money back if you don't like it or if you don't learn from it. I will give you your $3.99. He was like, oh, okay. And so then he watched it and he's like, how come you didn't tell me it was your movie? And I was like, oh, I don't know. I sometimes get bashful about
yeah. And sometimes you want to hear what would the feedback be if you didn't know that it was my movie.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So signtheshow.com, they can find links to where it's streaming. Find the show on Instagram, Twitter. I don't really do TikTok. Facebook. I have a good following on Facebook. For me, I'm just at Cat Brewer, CatBrewer on all social media platforms. But sharing the trailer, watching the film, and then telling your friends to watch, it's huge because not only, does it help get the movie seen, but then it may inspire someone to also advocate for people. And that's really the highest compliment ever. If someone's like, oh, I want to learn sign language. I want to be more inclusive. I want to start captioning my videos now, right? Yeah. Those are all big wins in my book.
Yeah. And then I think also sometimes as a person from that group that is being advocated for, being showcased, it feels validating to have people watch and share and see value in the stories that they wouldn't have heard otherwise and would have been oblivious to. So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Thank you for this.